All right, so we are excited to be here today. This is our third webinar in our new practitioner's guide to teletherapy. We started with an intro, and then last time we talked about some legal and ethical considerations. And today we were just talking right before the webinar that we're really excited about this one and our fourth one because it really gets into those strategies. And in our next webinar as well, we're going to really be deep diving into some resources and watching some actual therapy sessions or some mock therapy sessions. So we're really excited about these two that we're presenting this month and then on November 8th. And we'll talk a little bit more about that at the end. So today, similar fashion to the other ones that we've done, we have our intro, which takes just a few minutes. We will have our presentation and then plenty of time during and then at the end if we need to do any Q&A, and also time for that wrap up to do your knowledge check and then the survey. Just a few housekeeping items before we get started. Be sure that you have your participant worksheet available to you so that you can follow along with us, and we'll put that link in the chat for you. Use that chat box today to comment or ask questions. Again, if you've been here with us, you know that these are very interactive. We want to hear from you. We have polls. We have the worksheets with some time for some reflection about what we're learning today. And then we also want you to know that you can turn on the closed captioning for this webinar. And there's a little CC button down at the bottom of your video that will enable that function for you. Just a reminder, this is being recorded. If you were not able to download that participant worksheet, you should have received it in your reminder emails yesterday and today, but we'll go ahead and put that in the chat for you. This is great to follow along with because, again, we have those polls. We have some specific content that's listed here that will be important as you are going through the knowledge check this afternoon. Again, be active in the group chat. We want to hear from you as well. It's always a great time to be able to connect with our colleagues during webinars like this. So we really try to foster that during these webinars. If you are new to us and are not a part of our eLuma clinician community, we're really happy to have you here. eLuma was founded in 2011 by our current CEO and founder, Jeremy Glauser. Here at eLuma, we are on a mission to provide better support for schools so you can create more success with students. eLuma connects students and educators with clinicians who care and provide software solutions to support mental health, speech therapy, OT, PT, and school psychology. And just a little bit about us. I'm an OT by background. I've been an OT for 25 years. Along the way, I made the jump from medical-based to school-based, and I've been doing that for over half of my time as an OT. I've worked in in-person schools, in rural schools, suburban schools, and I've also done teletherapy. Since 2015, I was a contractor with eLuma prior to coming to the clinical services team.
And welcome, everybody. Oh, sorry, Pola, go ahead.
No, you go ahead, Sarah. I see your name next. I was going to jump in.
It's nice to have everybody with us today. I'm Sarah Plunkett. I've been a speech language pathologist for 15 years. Like Kami, kind of had a medical background and made the switch to schools after that. Have worked in the public school setting in person and also virtually. I contracted with eLuma for 2 years as a clinician before moving over to the clinical services team.
Hi, everyone, and welcome. I'm excited for you to be here today. These are our favorite topics, are the strategies. I'm a school psychologist by training and trade. I've been in the field for about 25 years. I've done everything from K-12 to the university level, so I've seen the spectrum of disabilities. I was a contractor with eLuma, but now I'm the mental health services specialist here at eLuma. All right, so we'd like to know a little bit about where you're at. What is your discipline? Go ahead and click the discipline that you are in. Let's see who's here today. Got quite a few speech and language pathologists. That's awesome. PT, school psychs, welcome. And OT. Fabulous. Thanks for being here. looks like the majority are from speech and language. Okay, and where are you working with, or who are you working with? Public schools, charter schools, private schools, or you're not working with a school, you're here to learn and share knowledge. Terrific. Got a nice mix, a little bit from everywhere. Yeah, we really look forward to hearing from you. I think some of the best strategies I've learned are from colleagues. So thanks for being here.
Absolutely. Now we'd love to know what grades you guys are working with. Always usually a good mix to this question. Interesting to see. And this is no different. This is pretty even so far. That's cool. Awesome. Thanks for sharing, guys. And lastly, we want to know, what do you feel as your level of expertise with teletherapy? How would you rate your knowledge there? What do you think? All right, perfect. Well, as Pola said, we're excited to have a discussion today and learn from each other. So this is going to be fun.
So welcome to this third webinar, Strategies for Remote Therapy. This is our third installment of our 4-part teletherapy bootcamp. All presenters are affiliated with Illuma Therapy Services, a provider of school-based teletherapy. Presenters do not endorse nor receive any compensation from any products or services included in this presentation. So in this section, we'll look at strategies for remote therapy as well as assessments. You can receive a certificate of attendance for today's webinar, but in order to receive that, you must attend this course in its entirety and complete the post-webinar survey, evaluation, and test. This course is also eligible for 1 NASP Continuing Professional Development credit or a 0.1 ASHA CEU upon passing the post-course evaluation. You must meet the requirements within 24 hours of this course ending.
We are excited to be ASHA approved and NASP approved for those CEs. For SLPs here today, if you would like us to report your completion of this course, you will be asked to complete an ASHA CE reporting section on that post workshop evaluation and test. We will remind you about this later at the end of the webinar. And if you're eligible to receive the NASP CEUs, you will not need to complete any further information. You will automatically receive that certificate of attendance when you meet the course completion requirements. And as Pola mentioned, all other disciplines who meet the course completion requirements will receive a certificate of attendance today. So now let's look at our learning outcomes for today. By the end of this presentation, you will be able to list 3 factors to consider when preparing a remote therapy session. Also identify 3 key elements of documentation for teletherapy services, and identify 3 teletherapy evaluation best practices. And just a reminder here, this quote is from ASHA. Teletherapy and telepractice use must be equivalent to the quality of services provided in person. The basis of best practice here applies across all disciplines, but according to ASHA guidelines, the use of telepractice must be equivalent to the quality of services provided in person and consistent with adherence to the Code of Ethics, audiology scope of practice, speech-language pathology scope of practice, any state and federal laws, and also ASHA policy. So just a reminder, refer to those discipline-specific governing bodies for more information. And this is information just taken actually from a course at ASHA's convention in November, last November, using technology to take your telepractice sessions to the next level. This was presented by Dr. K. Todd Houston and Kim Allen. Dr. Houston actually has a great podcast on teletherapy as well. There are good reminders here regarding embracing technology, having the flexibility to pivot even within technology as needed, So some of the things that were discussed, technology will not replace people, but those who use technology will replace those who do not. The fact that teletherapy is not new, it's just a different delivery model, different service model. And it is a tool to reach objectives, but of course, like anything else, can always be changed. And they also referenced, which I thought was pretty cool, they use VR as an example, but to be ready for what's next or what's coming up.
Yeah, I think OT, we just had an article in our OT Practice magazine about using VR in occupational therapy. So that's going to be the next interesting thing. And also AI is something that you hear a lot about too.
Absolutely. So we're going to do this frequently throughout the webinar today, but this is our first one. We're going to test our knowledge here. Teletherapy must be equivalent to the quality of services provided in person, and you guys are fast and on it, and yes, that is true. And sorry, thank you, Carrie, for virtual reality. Yes, for those we were discussing, yeah, VR there. Awesome responses there, guys.
Yes, and all of those guidelines and tips are very applicable to all of the disciplines. It's the same with counseling and psych. But as we're moving on to the next part where we're preparing for our remote therapy session, we're going to consider the platform and the equipment needs, your environmental support, and therapy activities for remote sessions. So best practice guidelines, you should be aware of the federal and state regulations relating to the administrative, physical, and technical safeguards applicable to privacy, security, including those pertaining to storage, transmission, and disposal of client information. The best practice is to use encrypted video conferencing platforms to protect client confidentiality. Equipment considerations include screen sharing and interactive features, which increase student engagement and participation. You want to make sure that your internet bandwidth can support the streaming and the screen sharing and those activities. Do you need a webcam or headphones? Do you need multiple monitors in order to improve efficiency? And have you practiced with your colleague? All of these are important considerations as you're preparing. A little bit of levity here. You also need to prepare and be camera ready. How many times have we been caught off guard and not camera ready? As you'll see, there's an audio Zoom meeting, and then there's the video Zoom meeting. I often tease my husband because he Zooms and the engineers are only on audio. And in my field in education, we are only on video. It's that important. So you also want to make sure that you're prepared for your video meetings as well. All right, let's test your knowledge. Which of the following are considerations regarding equipment in teletherapy? Encrypted video, screen sharing, bandwidth, interactive features, webcam, and headphone considerations, or all of the above? Hey, wow, 100%. All right, we know you're with us. That's great.
Yeah, great job. So when we're talking about environmental supports, this can include facilitators, things in your actual therapy environment online or in person, you know, what you see behind you, what is behind your student, and any modifications that are going to need to be made for that. A facilitator, we also often hear them called e-helpers. They could be paras, a parent, a student's learning coach if they're from home. And this person is present to support both the student or client and the clinician. Environmental considerations would include physical environment, so positioning of your devices and where the client is positioned. So you need to really make sure that you can see your whole face. You know, I know a lot of times our kids will get on and we see their like foreheads and up, but it's really hard to make a connection like that. And depending on the type of therapy that you're doing, you may need to see those facial expressions or be able to watch their mouth moving for speech, things like that. Modifications in the environment could be visual, verbal, or nonverbal, and we're going to look at each of these in depth. So facilitators serve a really important role, again, in assisting both the student or client and the clinician. Specific duties that they take care of will depend on the services being provided. So any appropriately trained staff member can serve as a facilitator. They don't necessarily need to be an SLPA, CODA, PTA, or another licensed therapy professional. They can be anyone that's trained to use the devices and to participate, but there may be some specific restrictions by school or state policy, so you do want to be aware of that. And again, they are different from CODAs or SLPAs, PTAs, because they're also not providing the therapy services. They are only there to support and assist students and providers with their therapy sessions. So as an OT, I would always talk to my facilitators and let them know, you know, you're my hands. OT is a very hands-on profession, and when you're doing teletherapy, we aren't sitting beside our students like we normally would in the schools. So just being able to communicate well with your facilitators or e-helpers is really important, and kind of breaking down each task and being able to tell them maybe as specifically as put your hand on their elbow, put your other hand on their wrist to guide in cutting, or any other activities, or maybe where it would be best to place an AAC device. So being able to make those connections with the facilitator is really important. We have another test your knowledge question here about the facilitators. Let me pull the poll up for you. So a facilitator can be any staff member at the school and no specific training is required. This one's a little tricky. I would say like the specific training is, they're not necessarily needing to be a licensed person. They just need to know how to use the devices. Great. So the correct answer here is true, because they do not require a license or any kind of therapy background necessarily.
And now we'll move into some environmental considerations. These are really important to think about in order to limit distractions for your students and also for us as providers. We want to carefully consider our environments, our locations as we plan for these teletherapy sessions. Of course, we want to minimize any background noise or other distractions in those environments. I thought this was interesting. Neutral backgrounds in blue or gray tones have actually been noted to improve overall appearance. So thinking about that, backgrounds are important. That's a big part of what our students are going to see there. Modifications can be made. Kami referenced this earlier. Those can be visual, like your camera positioning, can be verbal, like a slower speaking rate, or nonverbal, maybe like exaggerated facial gestures. These are just a few examples. Another thing you could consider is using, the closed caption features that are available, so your students don't have to rely on visual or verbal information alone during the session. Of course, this depends, on the students and their needs there. And this is another really important thing to consider: parent and or facilitator coaching. When we have virtual schools, sometimes the parents are serving as facilitators. They're very involved in the sessions. When we have brick and mortar schools, the facilitators, as Kami mentioned, are, our hands or our helpers there. So the type of coaching will depend on that environment. But it's really important to review goals and activities. They're partnering with us in these sessions. So we're going to make sure they're aware of the purpose and what we're doing. what our goals are for our students. Then we're going to conduct, our lessons, our activities, and then discuss, especially with parents, how to integrate those goals into daily routines. A lot of times parents have questions about carryover and generalization of goals, and this can be a really neat way to involve them, model for them, and provide some examples of things they can do at home there. Then we can debrief, answer any questions, then preview, our next session plans, maybe even considering ending those sessions with what can I do to improve this for you or for your student, and kind of get some feedback there. That can be a really helpful piece to those relationships that we're building. So we're going to test our knowledge again here. Another true false, slower speaking rate is an example of a verbal modification. You guys are fast, and this is true. Yeah, this slower speaking rate is a type of verbal modification.
Okay, and now we'll get to the third part we mentioned earlier, therapy activities. And if you were doing teletherapy during COVID, it's a whole different game now, because now the platforms have so many options available. There are so many more interactive games and engaging platforms. Some of the examples are here listed, and we'll talk about those a little bit later as well. But most of the materials that you would use in person now have an online counterpart, or they're easily adaptable to the online environment. You can use PDF files with an annotation feature. You can allow clients to draw, write, mark any files that you share. You can use animations and stamps and paintbrush options. Those are easy, fun activities. Screen sharing pictures and games. It's a great way to keep them engaged, and especially with the population, the student population now who practically grew up in the technology age. This is what they're used to, and so this keeps them very, very engaged. Now, remember that a lot of these correspond directly to the activities we would use in the in-person environment. So example, those boom cards often replicate cards or flashcards. Books or V-books those are the online books, which can replicate physical books. A lot of the board game options, things that you might have in your office now, are now in online versions. You can make them way more interactive. Turn taking, you can incorporate students' interests, like you can custom design some of these activities. If someone is really into Hot Wheels, you can incorporate it into cars. And then you can also encourage more creativity with a lot of the paint and coloring features, the mandala, the coloring puzzles as well. Okay, let's test your knowledge. Green screens, interactive games and books, whiteboards, and blank are all examples of interactive materials. The green screens are pretty fun. Great. Yes. Good job. Animations. There's some really fun ones now. Even slide decks have a lot of animation features. Okay, great work. Animations. Yep, some worksheets, yep, definitely. Okay, enhancing therapy activities can increase, sorry, the pulses are in my way, can increase interaction, foster carryover, incorporate student interest, and which one? Increase or decrease student engagement and creativity? Wonderful, 100%. Great job, everyone. We know you're still with us.
So now we're going to look at some examples of what this might look like. Pola mentioned a lot of this is, we're used to doing certain things in person, and a lot of in-person activities have kind of an online counterpart. So this is just an example of transitioning from an in-person speech therapy plan to a teletherapy session. This is one of my favorite books to use, especially with the younger kiddos, the very hungry caterpillar. My students always loved it. My own kids always loved it. There's a lot of really neat things you can do with a lot of speech goals. So if we're in person, we might read the book, then we might use like a color or create a caterpillar type craft. Articulation students can listen for a variety of sounds. They can produce those sounds, identify those, pull them out of the book, depending on their level. We're working at word level, maybe phrasing, maybe sentence level. There's a lot we can do there. Language students can answer, WH questions, work on categories or describing words, things like that. Fluency students can read passages of the story and use their strategies for smooth speech. And so it's really fun to think about transitioning that type of thing to teletherapy. As Pola mentioned, there are some really great sites for read aloud books. I know a lot of us are familiar with Epic Books, Books. YouTube has some really great accounts where they have, Miss So-and-so story time or something like that. And they're reading a lot of the great classics, like this one that we're really familiar with. And students will target those goals just as within your in-person activity. Maybe they use the annotate feature to color or put stamps or something on a PDF of a picture. Or there are a lot of neat online kind of create type activities or color pages. You can make a caterpillar, color a caterpillar, things like that, to where your main plan is still the same, but you're just kind of incorporating a lot of the fun digital assets that we have available to us now with virtual options. So this is, again, just kind of some visuals for you of what that might look like. Here's our read aloud on YouTube, just a screenshot of that. That can play. Then we've got an online caterpillar puzzle that the kids can click through and put together. And then there's also a variety of color pages. Like I mentioned, this is just one online. They can color the caterpillar. This is a favorite thing of mine. These are all free. So you didn't even have to put in any extra, money or a whole lot of time to find them, which is great. So these are just some examples of things that are really, the kids love them, and it's a really interactive way to keep working on those goals and get some engagement really for the kids. As Pola said, they are very well versed in technology and online activities and games, and so this is right up their alley.
Great. And like Pola said, there are a lot of new things now since coming out of COVID. When I started teletherapy back in 2015, I was trying to make a lot of my own things. I was trying to adapt worksheets that I had used, color, cut, paste activities to try to figure out how to make those work with teletherapy. And so there are some really awesome websites now, and we'll be sharing a lot of these and resource banks in our 4th webinar too. So that one's going to be really exciting to be at as well. But I wanted to take a look at a physical therapy session and an OT session today. So in person, we usually for motor activities are going to start with some warm-ups and maybe on equipment or different school terrain, out on the playground, if there are any steps in the school, getting around on carpet or the different types of tile and things that you might have. I know, obstacle courses are a lot of fun and can engage that gross motor activity. And then even doing some yoga or other push-ups, sit-ups, things like that, just to engage the core. And so those are also things that you would do in person. And it is a little bit different, especially for, physical therapy, to do a teletherapy session. I know a lot of my colleagues are having the facilitators and talking to them ahead of time about using maybe a second device that they can have to, maybe it's a tablet that you that the school provides, or their phone or something like that, but joining the session as a participant with their phones can allow them to, move around the room with the student or around the area if there's a specific part of the school that is difficult for the student to access. So those are some additional ideas for that participation piece, so that you can see that physical activity happening. But in addition to that, there are a lot of activities online that you can get as well. So there's lots of free videos online now with yoga poses, songs that you can sing and dance along with. You can also incorporate, if a student is at home, if you're doing, maybe virtual school or home-based treatment, having them play hide and seek and find objects around the home that might require the student to, look in different cabinets or drawers or boxes so that they can practice moving around in their environment. And then those different videos that would guide a student through yoga poses. So today I do have just a few screenshots as well. This Cosmic Kids, this is a movement-based YouTube video that could be shown on the screen. Again, hopefully that you can get your student either within the camera view or have that e-helper or facilitator participating with their phone or tablet. There are also, this is from Pink Oatmeal. It's a bingo card with, so it kind of incorporates a game along with yoga poses. So you would practice these ahead of time and then have the student go through the different poses online. And then another one from Pink Oatmeal, that's just that fitness bingo. So some different movement activities that this game feel gets the students involved in those interactive activities. So a little bit similar for OT as well. In person, we're doing warm-ups with games or Therapy. As simple as Therapy is, my students always love this. So if a student has this at school or maybe a regular putty or something, that's still great to incorporate through your teletherapy sessions. We might practice visual